My talk at the table is about presidential leadership. President Trump has been criticized for not delivering a message of unity during the national protests about racism in this country. And this concept of leadership, though, is one of many ways that the presidency has evolved since George Washington took the oath of office. CBS News senior political analyst and 60 Minutes correspondent John Dickerson has a new book. It's called The Hardest Job in the World, The American Presidency. He spoke with 4 presidents as part of his research, including President Trump. And John joins me now. John, good morning. The book is full of some of the best wit and wisdom over the ages about the presidency, and then you add your own wit and wisdom to that. There's an FDR quote I think we can begin with. He says, "I can only go as fast as the people will let me." We're at a moment now where it seems like the people want to go pretty quickly and in a very particular direction, and the president, in a way, is holding them back. Is that typical?
Well, yeah. Well, as you can imagine, I spent a lot of time investigating just this question for the book. And presidents kind of have to have a very delicate ear to the public sentiment. They cannot get ahead of the public. No one wants to run up a hill and have nobody behind them. On the other hand, there are times when a president, frankly, just has to run to the front of the parade. And that's why most of the social movements in America come from the people. And it's the presidents who catch up. And so while the president doesn't want to move too fast, there is also a problem of moving too slow and getting that balance right. That's why FDR was so great as a president. Lincoln has an almost identical quote about public sentiment. With it, everything can be done. Without public sentiment, nothing can be done. And the question for President Trump in this current moment is he hearing the call from the country? And is he responding in a way that is commensurate with or equal to the challenge of that call? A little response isn't enough. And the response has to hear the call and answer it.
Yeah. And then one more question about the current occupant before we get onto the job itself. Divisiveness. There are some hot button issues that a president might shy away from. This particular president, President Trump, seems to want to push buttons. Is divisiveness, has that always been a hallmark of the office?
Well, divisive in the sense that people have been unhappy with presidents who are who they think are doing the wrong thing. But there is a stewardship duty of the job to be the president of the whole country. And to speak, when President Trump started his speech at West Point, he said, "I come here on behalf of the whole country." That's the president's job. You're not president of your base. On the other hand, presidents are both the leader of their party and the leader of the country. But it has traditionally been the job of the president to sew up the country when it breaks apart and to do things to bring people together. I mean, think about Lincoln's address, his second inaugural address. There were assassins in town, Confederate assassins there to kill him. The war was still going on, and his message was, let's forgive and bind up our wounds. That is the tradition that presidents have usually tried to meet, that unity tradition.
Yeah. Well, on the subject of forgiveness, if you are not currently a supporter of President Trump out there in TV land, you might want to give him a break because, as you write, Mr. Dickerson, the job has gotten particularly hard. I have a quote here. "The American presidency is in trouble. It is overburdened, misunderstood, an almost impossible job to do." How did it get that way?
Well, we just kept lumping things on the president's lap. It's always been hard. Presidents have complained about the job since it existed. What's new now, though, and again, what I was trying to do in this book is go down to the blueprint of the office, go back to basics. What does the job mean? What do we expect from it? And is it right to expect those things? We've added things on to the presidency, certainly in the national security realm. It's gotten more complex. It's always been a difficult job, but it's gotten more complex. Threats are now nuclear, cyber, terrorism, pandemics. On the economy, because we're all interconnected, the president has to act as an emergency responder on the economy in a way previous presidents haven't. And then because Congress is no longer a co-equal branch, is sort of the little brother trying to keep up, it puts more things on the president's to-do list while robbing him of a governing partner in Congress. And then we have the partisanship. There's nothing wrong with partisanship. The partisanship of the kind we have now is awful because it locks everything up and freezes everything as opposed to being the useful fighting that's a part of government. And so all of those forces, plus social media is a mess, and we end up having our public debates hijacked by bad faith partisans as opposed to people who are acting in the public good. All of those things have lumped together to make a hard job even harder.
Yeah, it's a wonderful volume, the product of more than a decade of work on your part, a career covering politics. And I should point out to people that it's not just a history of the American presidency, but a guidebook for voters now less than 150 days away from picking the next occupant of the Oval Office. So an important volume on two fronts. Mr. Dickerson, thank you very much. The book, The Hardest Job in the World, goes on sale tomorrow.